Ranjika, and I run Connects Coaching and Facilitation. And here on my YouTube channel, I bring you videos related to nonviolent communication and other modalities related to it. And today I have with me Cleona Lira of Conscious Money. Cleona is an independent financial planner in the UK. She helps people build intentional and healthy relationships with money and plan their investments based on their value systems. She has been named a top 10 ethical advisor of 2023 by the Good Investment Review. And of course, Cleona is also an NVC practitioner, which is how I came across her work. She has a YouTube channel and an Instagram account where she shares a lot of snippets and insights about nonviolent communication as it relates to money. So NVC and money is a topic that I have a lot of curiosity and interest in. So I'm really glad that Cleona has agreed to join me for this conversation today. Thank you so much, Cleona, for joining me.
Oh, pleasure. My pleasure.
I think the first question I wanted to ask you was this. How come NVC and money? What prompted you to bring these two together and look at how they related?
I look at all kinds of helpful perspectives on money because we have so many sort of flawed thought processes around money. And it's always nice to hear somebody that has a radically different perspective. And I think Dr. Marshall Rosenberg brings that, especially when he says, don't use the words charge, pay, work. I'm like, huh? How do I do money without these words? This is exactly the language I use. And I love that challenge. And it provokes, I think that's what he meant with never charge money, never pay money. I think he meant to provoke us. And I really love that invitation to look at what does money mean to you and how we use money, and could we use it in ways that are more fun, more giving, more conscious. Yeah.
And what I remember the first time when I came across what Marshall Rosenberg said about never charge money for anything, never base your worth on your money or something, the value of what you're offering based on money. And I went, how do I even understand this? And it took me some understanding of NVC to even get that it actually requires a huge paradigm shift to be able to see money in that way. And like you said, this is the kind of language that we have around money. You charge money. How much does something cost? What is something worth?
Yes, and you charge money a fixed price, regardless of an understanding of the person's needs, circumstances. There are very few places that actually give money. Well, I'm just going to use the colloquial words. Okay, I'm not going to try and speak in like Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. But yeah, there are very few places where they pay money based on, your family circumstances. So, for example, there's a really great British charity, well, I don't know if it's British, but it's based in the UK in London, called Karuna. They're a Buddhist charity, and everybody gets paid based on their circumstances. So a single mom with 3 kids has different needs to somebody with no children who doesn't have a mortgage, and it's much more work to do that. For an employer to say, oh, tell me about, it's not how our world is cut out. We don't invest that much time getting to know each other and relationships. We are much faster in the way we process our how much we want to give and receive, So yeah, I also want to acknowledge that this takes a bit more work and a bit more time and a bit more spaciousness. And sometimes it's just easier to use the standard way. And in some circumstances, it's very useful to say, hey, I have this different way of talking about money, and would you be open to it? It might take a little bit more time and we might have to get to know each other. How do you feel about that?
Yes, so this is very different from how we used to talking about money. And at the same time, there are maybe baby steps we can take to moving towards that way of understanding money, not just for ourselves, but also in our relationships with others.
Yes.
You talk about Conscious Money. That's the name of the organization that you run. What does it mean to actually have a conscious relationship with money?
I wish I knew the answer, but what I share is that it's like a koan. I'm exploring what is conscious money. And I think there are levels to being unconscious and more conscious. And then, it's a bit like an iceberg. And we are unconscious about many things. Most of the time, we don't want to be where we are. We are constructing a different reality than the one that we have right now. And, our systems are also some of our money systems are designed to feed that. So our need for approval, our need for love, appreciation, our need, sometimes they feed that, those parts of us that don't feel good enough, that don't feel safe, to say, hey, buy this, that'll make you feel better, So for me, conscious money is just unraveling anything that limits me, belief systems, triggers and feelings that I haven't felt from the past that I'm carrying, that somehow money or situations about money provoke in me. And just learning to feel safe and trust life with and without money, which is quite hard to do because we rely on money so much to live our lives.
And when we're speaking about conscious relationships, it also strikes me that for a very long time, I didn't even think money was something I would have or I could have a relationship with. It was a thing or something that was conveniently or inconveniently had to be a part of my life. So why would I want to look at it?
Yeah. And I think it's something that people look at quite later on in their journey towards self-healing or self-improvement or transformation or whatever you want to call it, because it is one of the deeper layers that we tend to uncover when we realize, oh my gosh, like because it's so connected to our relationship with life and our relationship with work, There's so many ideas about work that we've taken on. I mean, you and I are from India. We very well understand the psychology of some Indian parents who would prefer to have an engineer or a doctor than an artist or a dancer, that could be one of the generalizations that are assumed in some parts of our culture. And so just, how deeply layered this is. And it's not easy to uncover what is natural. And oh my gosh, I'm just this big bundle of conditioning that I've just absorbed. My mum's beliefs about this, and my dad's beliefs about this, and my church's belief about this, and my neighbor's belief about this, and I don't actually know what I really want in this moment.
Then I would imagine being conscious about our money, about our relationship with money, is also about surfacing these beliefs, being aware of them, and then saying, is this really something that I want to continue holding?
Yes, exactly. And life luckily gives us plenty of opportunity. It triggers us every now and then. And every trigger is an opportunity to explore because it gives you clues about, oh, there's something I'm carrying inside me that needs some exploration. And the triggers, as much as we would love to point the finger at, oh, that person is annoying, which some people are annoying. I haven't reached the point where nobody's annoying. But that reveals something about me that is getting provoked. Why do I find that quality annoying in them, and what can I work on? And to me, the link between money and shadow work, I mean, Marshall Rosenberg used the language of judgments. How easy it is for us to just project sometimes onto money, like money is this or money is that, but it's really like a neutral cloud in the sky. We put the little what do you call it, post-it notes onto money, like money is this or money is that, but they're all fabrications of our mind.
And our society and culture that we live in.
Yes.
Talking about beliefs around money, I remember hearing two very possibly contradictory beliefs when I started, as I trace back, I can see that I've heard two different things about money. One is that money is bad, or in the sense of to be rich is to be bad, and maybe it wasn't so explicit, but it was more like, no, your aim shouldn't be to be a rich person, And the other strain is, no, but you do need money in order to survive. What's going to happen to you if you don't grow up and get a job that will help you support yourself and make you money? So there are lots of these contradictory stories that we end up learning, almost sometimes seeing money maybe as a necessary evil. How does that impact our relationship with money?
I think it's a personal journey because some people don't have that conditioning that we have to work hard and survive. Some people seem perfectly at ease and they don't know when their next paycheck is coming. They live in quite radical trust. So if not everybody has those beliefs that money is bad, then it must be something that I've taken in, and then, okay, so that's a general lie that we all believe, that money is evil or money is bad, or even that money is good, or that I need money to survive. And so what's true for me, and what serves me, what's sort of the most profitable way to look at money for me? Because I have this work that I believe in doing, and I also have to take care of my family and my needs and have an occasional rest period and holiday. So then what does that look like for me? And just questioning, I have to work hard. Or, I mean, we see a lot of examples of wealthy people who are over consuming and, maybe extravagant, maybe it looks really like, I don't know, I've seen these Instagram videos where people poke fun of people like making heart-shaped ice cubes, or their fridges look perfect. They have the time to do all this because they have all this wealth. And that does make you think, oh, like, I don't want to be rich like that, But I suppose where I'm going with this is we don't see a lot of examples of wealth that has done good, and money can do lots of good. It's how we use the resource of money. It can be used for very, very selfish and narcissistic purposes, just me. And I think we are all on shades of narcissism. Our thoughts are mostly about ourselves. So I don't mean that in a judgmental way. And we can use it for very destructive purposes. So it's like, okay, so how do I want to use my money? To serve the greatest good, to be of contribution and service, or, and then questioning those ideas about work and survival and, does money really help me to survive? Because sometimes you can have, I mean, there are so many examples, but I can give you one where I forget her name, but she invested with Bernie Madoff, and she wrote a book about food. Janine Roth, I think. And she had the same story. I'll save my money when I retire. I'll have this nice egg. But then the egg gets destroyed, and then you have to rely on life. And life has a way of teaching you that, nothing outside of you is really that reliable, including money.
And I guess in a way, when we look at our money stories, we're also looking at our relationship with scarcity and abundance. Because for a lot of us, abundance is connected to material abundance. Like, I have enough things, that implies abundance. But what can abundance possibly look like when we're conscious of our relationship with money, when we're focusing on more than material abundance?
Yeah, I think again, it's personal. Like, what does abundance look like for you? Because for me, like, I love to have the time to learn. That's really important to me. I love relationships. My relationships with my clients, my friends, my family, they are important to me. There are so many forms of abundance, but the biggest example that I see is just nature. Like, if you grow an apple tree or a plum tree, or if you've seen a tree that produces fruit, you realize that it just gives generously. And sometimes there's so much of fruit that, it spoils on the ground, but then nature doesn't waste anything. She takes it and she recycles it as compost. So there's so many examples of abundance. We do get stuck on money, but I think that's also because in our society, the way we live now, we are more financially well-to-do and more insulated from each other because of money. I know our parents' generation, I'm assuming yours and mine, they had a much harder life, but they also relied on each other economically, and that created more of a contract to have interdependence, which was beautiful. You had to work on your relationship with your grandmother because you needed her to cook your meals for you when you came home from lunch, so your mother had to put in that time. Whereas now you can, more easily ghost people. And so it's sort of a complex question. But to wrap up, to me, abundance just means that whatever I need and whatever I want, I can adapt the viewpoint that I can ask for it, or that I have the resources to ask for it. Maybe I don't have the money, but I have the relationships. I can ask for support, so it shows up in many different forms.
And that's very different from the idea of abundance as being, I have it. Here it's about, I can ask for it, or I can ask for support, which is very different from actually acquiring or being the owner of something that you need.
Yes, exactly. It's so much more fun when you can ask for it. When we have a book club on our street and somebody couldn't find the book, and then the book was moving from one house to another. It was so beautiful to see. Nobody had to buy the book, and the book just moved because you only needed the book for a few days and then pass it on,
And then that's always associated with that story of connection. Or here's a book I received from a neighbor so-and-so, and it got passed on to the entire street, and that sense of community that comes with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Talking about abundance, I know that you intentionally created your working life in a way to give you the space to do the things you need. I don't know if that's still something that's in progress. I know it was something you were working on some time ago. How was that? How did you go through that exploration or that journey for yourself?
Yeah, my relationship now with life is that the primary thing that's most important to me is contentment, peace of mind. And that's like the number one thing that I want to protect. And I realized that my relationship with work was very much one that I inherited from my mum. She was a single mum with 3 girls, and she was a school teacher. One of the only school teachers that did extra classes. I feel sorry for her kids, the school kids, but she did extra classes in the morning. She did extra classes in the afternoon. Sometimes when there were exams, the kids from her school stayed with us for a couple of months because they had homes where they couldn't study. She was quite a workaholic, and that was her identity. And I realized that I had absorbed that. And so I didn't know who Cleona was. When I started my business and I had a lot of free time, you don't build up your clients in the first 2-3 years. And then I was like, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. I can't just relax. I have to do something all the time and have this voice that says, you're wasting time. What are you doing? And so, yeah, I just had to unravel that conditioning. And I realized that I had this belief that I must be doing something useful all the time. But actually, it's very useful for me to be able to just look at a tree, look at it, go for a walk, rest my mind, allow ideas to come in, So, yes, I have created more of an intentional life where I'm very careful about the clients I work with. Like, I need to like them. They need to also like me. I make that very clear. The click is there or not there. You're much better off served by somebody that you really feel that chemistry with. I'm not taking all the possible money opportunities that come my way, and also being careful about my time, how much time I spend at work.
And I'm guessing a lot of that comes from intentionality and an awareness of what is enough for you. Because it can be tempting to say, oh, here's another client, let's take them, whether we like them or not. But to actually say, what does enough look like for me? And the other part I'm hearing you say is about asking ourselves the question, who am I outside of my work identity?
Yes. If that's a huge one for you, or if you're a parent, who am I when I'm not being a mom? Or who am I when, I don't know, when I'm in this role of a child, do I change around certain people? And what is that all about? We do change around people. We have, there are different versions of us that pop up. And it's just interesting to explore, like, why can't I be like this with that person? And why can I,
I know we touched upon this a little bit when we started this video, but could you share a little bit more about how NVC helped you re-examine your relationship with money? Given that you come from a background or a career that deals with money, how did NVC help you looking at it differently?
Well, for me, the whole emphasis of Marshall on life-serving consciousness, what serves life, that sort of simplifies so many decisions, because when you get a request or when somebody asks you to do something, you're like, yeah, that's not how I see it serving life. So it's very clear. The second way is communicating about money. It's very awkward. And I was a person who likes to help people and feel needed and important because other people need me, but not very good at asking for my own needs. And actually, the teacher that helped me the most with that was Vicki, because her book about being shameless was huge. To me, she should be more viral than Brené Brown, but just how she models asking for what you need. 100% of the time, just ask for what you need. And again, with money, I was ashamed, even though I was a financial planner, I didn't have a problem asking for money when I worked in a job, because I wasn't asking on behalf of me. It was the corporation that was getting the money. I was getting a salary. But when I started my business, I would think, oh gosh, like, I like this person, so I'll ask them for less. There were it was just taking up so much of my energy. And then I realized, okay, I'm projecting value and worth and entangling relationship with money, and it just helped me to clarify a lot of things. And then the other invitation from Marshall, never do anything that isn't play. How radical is that? Because coming from India, I'll speak for myself, not for all Indians. it was very much get the most marks, compete, forget about play, hard work, get on top, like do what you need to get the promotion, and sacrifice. And life isn't like meant to be always happy clappy. But actually, I'm realizing that I'm much more of service and use to the world when I'm happy, when I'm peaceful. Not that I need to be happy and peaceful all the time, but it's just a different way of being with myself, and then with everything that flows through life, including money and relationships. So NVC has been a huge game changer. It was my husband that introduced me to it. He incidentally dislikes the language of NVC, and probably I was very annoying when I first started learning NVC and obnoxious, as Marshall Rosenberg called it, that obnoxious phase of trying to make everybody change their sentences around you because it's not violent or because it's violent. But it helped our relationship too. I don't think I would be able to understand him as well without the tools of empathy. So it's been huge.
So when you talk about being in service, that brings up another thought that I have, which is that there's also kind of an expectation that those of us who do roles of service don't get paid. I've heard this several times. How can you charge for this kind of money? And I'm sure other people who work in social change or these kind of impact roles or jobs hear this too. It's almost as if the work that you do is tainted when money comes into the picture. There's a little bit of a suspicion that comes in. How do we look at this? How do we even start understanding where this comes from?
First of all, when people say things like that, it's like, oh, is there a provocation in me? Or is it their belief system that they need to work on? That doesn't apply to me. Usually people have their own beliefs. And for example, one time I invoiced a client after nearly a month of doing the work, and she was like, you've invoiced me too early. Now, that's not my belief. So I was like, okay, but I just wrote a very matter-of-fact email and said, pay whenever you wish, but it's not early for me. So people have their little project, oh, this is too much or this is too little. Everybody has their own stuff going on. So I would hear that as, that's what's going on for you. That's your belief system. I'm not taking it on. Or if you are taking it on, then examine it and see where something needs some work in you. If you want to do work for free, that's fine. But for me, in the world that we live in, I don't value things when people themselves charge very little or aren't clear about what they're asking for. For example, I recently went on like a Buddhist Seva retreat, and I do get where the teachers were coming from. They asked for dana, but they weren't clear on their needs. And they asked in a way where they said, we need money, but they didn't ask for an amount because they're not really allowed to, I think, in the lineage of the Buddha. So it's very complicated. They've taken on something that was from 2000 years ago, which is very beautiful, but I'm not sure how pragmatic it is for the world that we live in. And they got massively underpaid. So they had to do another round of asking by email. But it would be so much easier if they were just clear in the first place. We need to live. We're doing this work because we love it. But needs, we want to get paid. And this is how much we would like to get paid. It kind of simplifies life. And then I suppose it's also like clear marketing. Like, I'm the kind of person that charges. If you don't like it, go somewhere else,
This reminds me of this Brené Brown quote that I read that says, clarity is kindness. And it's actually supportive to other people when I can give them the clarity of, hey, I ran this retreat for you and this is what it cost me. And you're welcome to contribute as much as you're willing to. I suppose it offers a lot of ease to the person who's making that decision rather than sitting with, okay, now what do I give?
Yes. And I've read from a different family constellations guy who says that it can cause entanglements when you ask for something after the service has been given. And in my experience, I feel more relaxed when people are clear about what they want before I attend. So then I can decide, is this going to be worth it for me? Are they asking for too much? Or am I going to be surprised by them saying, oh, it's worth this much? And, I have a completely different expectation in my mind. So yeah, I agree with that quote about clarity. Clarity is king.
So I'm very intrigued by what you're saying around entanglements that arise when we ask for money after the service is performed. Could you say a little more about that?
Entanglements can be created, I think, when expectations are not clear and not communicated upfront. So suppose you offer a workshop and then you say, pay me later what you think it's worth. according to this theory, that can create entanglements. It's much better to say, it costs me so much to put on, I would like to receive so much, and then pay me what you're willing, but you know the amounts that I'm expecting beforehand. And ideally you commit to an amount so that I know whether I should put on this workshop or not, you know. That sort of clarity is what I'm talking about. I say that about entanglements, and at the same time, I've also seen where a workshop is offered fully in gift, where the teacher has done a lot of work to free themselves from any ideas that their work is linked, the money that they receive is linked to their work. So they're happy. So in their mind, they've already processed that they could receive nothing, and they're still happy to do it freely in gift, not free, but in gift, and ask for money at the end. But that expectation is made clear that there will be a process called money piles, or there will be a process to talk about the needs of the facilitators. And then we invite you to give money, and you could give or take away money that you've promised. And this whole process actually was filmed by Vicki. I think Money Piles was started by Dominic Barter from Restorative Circles, but Vicki Kashtan has actually filmed the whole process, and it's really beautiful. Having participated in it, you know, it's like people were writing their contributions on post-it notes and taking it back and changing the numbers, and it was just so beautiful to see from like, okay, now I have more information about you, I can make a different decision from the one I made 10 minutes before. Oh, now I can see the group has contributed this much, but actually you need a bit more, so I could pay a bit more, or, you know, I thought that was really beautiful. So I do like, my preference is for there to be clarity, but I also like these radical initiatives taken by trainers about money piles, which I've seen doesn't create entanglements, but I haven't studied it.
And what I can imagine with a money pile is that it needs a certain kind of connection for that to happen. It needs to go beyond the transactional of, hey, I'm putting up something on my website, and then maybe a money pile is not the best idea. But if we were to sit together and connect with each other, then it becomes a lot easier to respond from that sense of, oh, I see you as a human being, rather than this is what I think your money is worth, your work is worth.
Yes, exactly. Because nonviolent communication is going towards natural giving, for which a relationship is required. And I think I heard Dr. Marshall Rosenberg say on one of his videos that when he did the workshops and he gave the money back, it took about a day for people to understand what he means by natural giving and to create the relationships that allows and enables that to happen. So I would probably not use it if I was doing like a one-off workshop somewhere for 2 hours. I would probably not do that. I would probably do that with people that, you know.
So with NVC, we see money as a strategy to meet needs, not as a need in itself. And that said, I think it's a very effective strategy, at least in the world that we live in, because it can often seem in the world that there's little choice. You know, there's a lot of things for which I need money, even though it's not a universal human need. How do you reconcile this?
I like Marshall Rosenberg's quote where he says, create the world you want to live in and then live in it. So I reconcile it by sort of creating belief systems that work for me in my little bubble, and then I just live according to those principles. So yes, money is a strategy to meet needs. Sometimes I might want to help somebody that looks like they have less money to pay me for my financial planning services, and I might do it for free. And take money from other places where there is more abundance, you know. Sometimes I might feel very resourced and feel like, oh, I have enough, and offer this workshop completely for free. And sometimes I'm feeling really contracted and I'm feeling like I don't want to give anybody anything. I've done a lot of voluntary work these last years. I feel exhausted. So I'd like to receive money, you know, and that would meet my needs for something, a community, a contribution, feedback, fun, whatever that might be. Comfort. And so yeah, so I think we have to be careful about beliefs that we take on, you know, and question again whether that's really true for me, because there are plenty of lies that we believe about money, like money is freedom, or money is this, or money. They're not simply not necessarily absolute truth, you know. So yeah, but just questioning, there's little choice in society. Is that really true? I don't know. I see so much choice, but sometimes seeing the lack of choice is my own inability to see life in all its creative force. Something in me is contracted and I'm collapsing and I'm losing the perspective that there is choice. And that's when I can go and ask for some support and say, hey, I'm just, I need somebody to listen to me. Something needs attention here.
It doesn't have to be an all or nothing in terms of you have to believe the mainstream stories or you have to live the radical NVC way of relating with money. There can be a way in which we can negotiate between these two and say, this is what I'm willing to do right now. So do you have any suggestions for someone who wants to start stepping towards a more intentional relationship with their money, maybe start making their choices with more mindfulness?
Oh, yes, I have plenty of suggestions. I think the relationship with money, take what you see about money, think about money, feel about money, judge others about money, and turn it back this way. Go back towards yourself. All our judgments reveal something also in us that maybe we haven't fully accepted, fully loved. There are some collective stories like anger is bad, or sometimes we're so vulnerable and hurt and sad, and we don't feel comfortable to share those parts with others. And sometimes money brings up shame, guilt. So again, it's just taking that shame and guilt that we feel and then saying, "Oh, let me make some space to allow that to be, felt." And then somehow it sort of transforms. And I love body somatic work. And yes, NVC is wonderful, but sometimes the tools to explore the judgments, if you can feel your judgments in the body, they get released very easily, like really feel all your feelings. And so that's what I would say is take all that information, but then turn it. Not that you're a project or, that you need to be worked on. You're perfectly okay the way you are. But if you want to be free, then there is some things that aren't free, that kind of are like stuck in the body, like energies. And fortunately or unfortunately, the unconscious is always in the driving seat with money. And money is so abstract that it's something that we can easily project upon. So it's never clear. If it's unconscious to me, it's not clear what I need to work on. So all these things are clues. Yeah, and then more mindfulness with money is just, maybe like creating like a little trigger diary of, oh, this person really annoyed me when they refused to split the bills equally, and they sat there and counted like what their drink was, and they made everybody waste 10 minutes to go through it. That really annoyed me. So then use those moments to see if there are trends in your triggers. And then, when you touch money, when you interact with money, where is the resistance? Where is there flow? And where is there still some resistance? For example, I had like a lot of problems with initially, like the gift economy. I was like, they're going to take advantage of me. They're going to and that's just from being a small child and having a lot of responsibility and having like people feeling responsible for other people's needs. I've taken that on. And so it was too overwhelming for my system to say, I'm just going to do this for free, in gift. I was like, no, I don't trust them. So then there's something in my body that doesn't feel safe to do that. So where is that? And why is that? And then just going back. So now I can make a free choice. I can do something in gift. I cannot do something in gift, but it's got nothing to do with the program of Cleona makes it mean that she's not safe in the world.
Speaking of working with our money beliefs, what complementary modalities have you come across that have helped you explore your relationship with money and that you'd recommend?
The main thing is shadow work, which just allows you to go deeper within yourself. I also like anything that allows you to get in touch with the body, because the body holds these contractions energetically. And when we say feelings, they are also lodged inside the body energetically. What else? I love meditation, but it's not for everybody. But just anything that allows you to have a few moments to just be, where you're detaching from thoughts. I also love Byron Katie's work, where you question your beliefs, because most of our thoughts, they're just like clouds in the sky, and then we attach to them, and then we identify with them, and then we make a story, and they're not true. They really need examining. For example, a thought like, oh, they're taking advantage of me. It's just come into my mind. But is that really true? Or am I just latching on to something that, has nothing to do with what's going on? I like Brene Brown's, the story I'm telling myself, or I'm constructing something and then checking out with other people. So yeah, those are the main modalities. And then if you want to look at family stuff with money, for some people they think it's rubbish, but I found it very helpful. Family constellations, yeah. And then sometimes we bring, if we are self-employed and we run our own business, we bring our mother and father into it. And so just seeing those patterns is very useful. If you're from a colonized country, you could also sometimes bring all that history into your relationship with money, because the trauma is held in bodies from our ancestors too, and we carry that. And it's not ours to carry. It's not our pain to carry. Sometimes we can just let it go very easily. But I've seen patterns where people instantly have a certain amount of money and then find a way to go bankrupt. Like they can't. They just have like an internal what do you call the word, equilibrium, where they get rid of it when it feels like, oh, that's too much. Yeah, so it's very interesting and fascinating.
That's the work of family constellations.
Yes, that's the work of family constellation. These patterns like bankruptcy or addiction to money as a way of meeting needs, overspending, stinginess. People who have a lot of money, but then they just cannot bring themselves to spend, but they'll sit there for hours. To me, that's such a waste of life energy, comparing the washing machine price when the difference is like 50 rupees, pounds, or whatever, it's not that much, but you spend a whole day. That time is also your life energy, and you're never going to get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's interested in exploring this even more, I know Cleona has a series of videos on her channel exploring money in relationship to different modalities, family constellations being one of them, even the neuroscience of understanding how we relate to money, and a whole bunch of other themes. So check it out. I'll leave a tag in the comments. You talked about being self-employed and being aware of what stories we're bringing into our work and how we do our work. And one of the things maybe for some of us who work on our own, maybe even for people who work in organizations, we're asked to put a number to the work that we do, to assign a worth in terms of monetary value, and say, this is what my work is worth to your organization or to this project that I'm contributing to. How do we deal and of course, I also know that it's so challenging to do, because how do you assign a value based on on just a number? How do I say my 1 hour is worth 1,000 rupees? What's a good way to start approaching this?
There's a really good book called Your Money or Your Life by Vicki and Joe Dominguez, and it talks about trying to work out your needs, then trying to work out the number of hours you want to work. And then that's your basic number, that this is the amount that I need. Now, it really depends on the kind of work that you do, the market value, where you want to be on the spectrum, whether you want to be like the most expensive and have more exclusivity or, but if those numbers mean anything to you, there's a story behind those numbers that needs exploring, because like I've practiced unraveling my worth from the money that I charge, and learning to be shameless about it. But that took time. So if at any point in time you're making it mean something, those numbers mean something, like I'm too expensive or I'm too cheap or whatever it might be, those stories need examining. But it's the marketplace. If there's enough clients, you could put the value that you charge, like the price that you charge, higher if you don't want that many clients. And that's one way of sort of, ensuring your needs are met. If you don't have enough clients, maybe like you start off with a wider net and, you tweak it as you go along. And yeah, there's no like clear maths or science to it, but being clear on what enough to you is and what at least the bare minimum is that you need, and then adding a good percentage on top if you're somebody whose tendencies towards under earning, so that you're, protecting your needs, I think is important. I think we are definitely responsible for asking for what we want and asking for what we want clearly. And I think people respect that. They respect it when we're clear on the price that we ask for.
And again, so different from so many of these beliefs. If I ask for this much, they will assume that I'm greedy, or, different kinds of stories can be associated with asking for a lot of money.
But if you've done the work on I'm greedy and I'm okay with being greedy, then it doesn't provoke that stuff in you. So that's where the shadow work comes in. Like if you've accepted all parts of you, the greedy parts, the capitalist big parts, the home, the ascetic, the hermit, the stingy person, nothing anybody says can really provoke you if you've really fully accepted yourself. But yeah, people will say that, and that's their stuff to work on. It's not yours necessarily, unless there's some truth in it, in which it's always good to examine, is there some nugget in if like 15 people have said it in a month, then maybe there's some examination to do. But yeah, we're just always projecting, qualities onto each other and onto money.
So the more I examine my stories, the easier it is to not take things personally when people project their money stories onto me.
Yes, and noticing that the mind's habit and tendency is to manufacture these stories all the time. So sometimes it's just like, this is where the mindfulness helps, or any practice where you can see these thought patterns. You don't have to accept every invitation of your mind to suffer. Sometimes the mind will come and say, oh, Ranjita said you were greedy, so you must be greedy, and that's not very good, and that's not how you were raised, and it'll keep talking. And then you say, I see you. And I'm not taking you in. I'm unsubscribing to that. And the minute you withdraw your attention, it loses its power, So you sort of become more sovereign in terms of your authority over what's going on. But sometimes we become like victims of the thoughts that pour in. And that's the mind's job. Its job is to, sometimes they're helpful, but sometimes they're, in my experience, a lot of times they're unhelpful. They're very judgmental. They're very draining when I give them space and time. So I cut off the oxygen quickly if I spot them, because they're invitations to suffer.
I like the idea of pressing the unsubscribe button. It gives me like a very imaginative way of saying, no, thank you. I see you. No, not anymore.
Yes, exactly. Anytime there is suffering or discomfort, it's an invitation to see, what am I believing, That's Byron Katie's teaching, but I think it's very true. Because in this moment, there isn't a problem, right now. But yeah.
We know that money is not a need, and yet it is something that can really, it's almost like very starkly making invisible differences visible. So I go out on the streets, especially in India, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is so wide. The more I practice nonviolent communication, the more I'm aware of my own feelings and needs, the more intensely I notice I have reactions to what I'm seeing, as the distance between people who have access to resources and people who don't. How does one deal with this guilt? How do you, because I know that in my dream world, in my ideal world, people won't not have access to the basics that they need to survive. And yet there is a world in which my means are limited, my influence is limited. How do I deal with this?
Yeah, I have the same predicament, and I find it very distressing. But like you say, your means are limited. This is a bigger problem than what you can solve. And maybe the way I look at it is, the best thing I can do is to change my own consciousness and to provide resources for other people to change their own consciousness, because our money systems are a reflection of where we are with our consciousness. We're just not as evolved in sharing resources. We have resources, but there's still quite a lot of exploitation, bullying. I've seen people wearing very nice clothes, bargaining with vegetable vendors over like little amounts of money. And I think, wow, like, just pay it. They're literally just surviving selling vegetables. And so now when I can only share with you, like, I don't have an answer for this, because to me, it's just, it's reflecting our consciousness that we are not as evolved. And inequality is a problem everywhere, not just in India. Even in the UK, we have a huge number of children going hungry to school, which is quite shocking, you know. And India is no longer a poor country. It's a very wealthy country with abundant resources, extremely intelligent people with strong work ethics. If we put our minds together, we could easily figure out a way to provide the basic needs so people don't suffer the way they do. Yeah, so when I go to India, I give money from natural giving, from my heart. I'll go to a person selling tender coconuts. I'll talk to him. I'll look at him as an absolute equal to me. Initially, they don't even know that I'm from India because, you know, colonization, I have fairer skin or whatever. And then give them money with a smile and try to be sensitive to the fact that it doesn't feel like I'm, you know, like they're begging and I'm giving them money. I'm giving them money because I really want to enrich their lives and I have the money. That's my practice. That's the little, I feel like it makes a difference to me. It doesn't do anything for the system. And yeah, the guilt isn't helpful. So anything again that, you know, like that means that I have a should in my mind about how things should be. And that causes me suffering. So I prefer to live in how reality shows up and just accept it and trust that somehow life is also taking care of them as it is taking care of me. It doesn't appear like that at all, but I don't know all the details, you know? And that sort of also gives me some, otherwise I suffer too much. If I think they shouldn't be like this and they should have this and I suffer too much, it's too distressing and then I'm not useful, then I'm giving with a tinge of guilt and I feel like they can feel it. So these are my practices. And then recently, you know, yeah, so just sort of being generous and trying to counter, and then also like, yeah, questioning if something looks off to me, you know, just questioning it, just creating the space. If it's something that I've done work on, then I can question if something upsets me or triggers me, where I see somebody bargaining or something. If I've done work on it, I can ask very neutrally. I never want to ask where I'm coming with this energy of you should be doing it differently. But just making a neutral interruption to the pattern, if I can in the moment. And yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's where I am with it. If you have any information, help me, because it's a big issue. It's a big issue, income inequality.
Yes, absolutely. And what I'm taking from what you've shared is the opportunity to greet people with dignity, whether or not they have access to resources, and to
Yes.
offer joyfully what it is I'm able to do. And side by side to do my own personal work so that I'm not coming from the charge of this is bad or this is wrong.
Yes. Yes.
As the last question, I want to ask you, for anyone who's watching this video and who's maybe even not even yet started looking at the relationship with money, where do you suggest they begin? What practical steps can you suggest they get started with?
There's a good book called The Psychology of Money by Housel. I'd recommend if they like reading or audiobooks. Your Money or Your Life, Vicki. It has 9 steps to look at your relationship with money. Go and hang out on Facebook groups where people talk more openly about money. This is a big taboo that we need to break. You know, talk about your money boundaries with your friends, like, you know, I can never spend on this, or when it comes to spending under this amount, I don't even think about it. I just spend because the time invested in thinking about it's not worth it. Just talk about it with your friends. Make it less taboo. Yeah, and it's not difficult to look at your relationship with money. It's actually a very fun thing, and it frees you. You know, it frees you in unimaginable ways, because we have so many beliefs tied to money, life, how we should work. All of that stuff is tied into money, and so the minute yeah, it's very freeing, very liberating to look at it. So don't think of it as like, oh, I need to look at my relationship with money, because yeah, there's like golden fun clouds along the way.
That hold a lot of opportunity.
Yes, yes. Not in necessarily in money, but in freedom and clarity and getting your needs met.
So thank you so much for speaking to me today, Cleona. For anyone who's watching this video and wants to know more about Cleona's work, the links are in the description of this video. So I'd recommend you follow her on Instagram and YouTube to take a look at all of the resources that she's sharing that will help you get clearer about your relationship with money. Thank you so much, Cleona. Thank you.